session is Mr. Yubin Zhang. Mr. Zhang is the Principal Regional Cooperation Specialist of the Regional Cooperation and Integration and Trade Division under the Climate Change and Sustainable Development Department of the Asian Development Bank. Mr. Zhang has over 30 years of experience in development and poverty reduction and has been deeply involved in regional cooperation and integration since 2003. Mr. Zhang handles RCI funds management, operational support to regional departments, quality assurance of RCI projects, and coordination with development partners. Before joining ADB, Mr. Zhang worked in the International Department of the PRC's Ministry of Finance. He also served as advisor to PRC's Executive Director at the World Bank Group and worked in International Finance Corporation. Mr. Zhang, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Eileen. Good morning, everyone, and happy to moderate this session. This session, we will present and discuss the guidance note on economic corridor development, which is prepared by ADB. I'm happy to introduce to you our distinguished presenter, Mr. Pradeep Srivastava. Pradeep is our international consultant who actually developed this guidance note. Pradeep is an independent consultant and a researcher, and also is an economist with more than 30 years of experience in economic development. He also worked as a staff of Asian Development Bank for many years. He was the country director for Tajikistan during the period of 2017 to 2021, overseeing and managing a portfolio of 14 projects exceeding $770 million. Prior to that, Pradeep was a principal economist leading ADB's regional cooperation and integration initiatives in Central Asia and Southeast Asia. Before joining ADB, Pradeep worked at the Harvard Institute for International Development at Harvard University, and also worked at the World Bank Group in Washington, D.C., and also as a chief economist at the National Council of Applied Economic Research in Delhi. Pradeep holds a PhD in economics from Yale University. With this, Pradeep, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I'll use the podium. Sorry, I thought the introduction would be longer, but it's thank you, Yubin, for the introduction. And good morning to everyone. It's my pleasure to introduce you to this new framework that Liaziza was talking about, which has been under preparation in ADB over the last couple of years, specifically, and more generally over the last 10 years, as different teams of ADB staff working in Southeast Asia, in South Asia, in Central and West Asia departments have been grappling with how best to bring some kind of coherence to the various types of demands that they are getting from the member countries on what is economic corridor development and how it can be best used. Before we start, I just want to make sure on a couple of terminology, just so that we are on the same page. Economic corridors are used widely as a term and can mean many different things. For a long time, as Liaziza was mentioning in the opening remarks, They referred essentially to transport corridors that were used to increase regional connectivity. ADB started using economic corridors almost 25 years ago. And at that time, everybody understood that it was much more than just transport corridors, more like a network of connectivity, which was being done even in Europe at that time under the 10T initiative. And it was adopted also by ADB in the GMS program in early 1990s. And at that time, the countries in the GMS had just come out of conflict. The infrastructure was very, had a lot of gaps. And so the initial focus was on getting the physical connectivity done. And so for a long time, economic corridors were just transport corridors. Today, the discussion we are having, I want to start off by making clear that please do not think of transport alone. We are talking about economic corridor in a much broader context. So when we say economic corridor, if in your mind you start saying, oh, ADB builds roads, so they're talking transport corridors, yes and no. But to begin with, let's say that economic corridors, we are not talking about only transport corridors. That's number one. Number two, we are talking about a spatial approach, spatial as in space, not in the sky, but on the ground, geographical area. And in that context, when we say area or a node, economic node, don't think of a city, don't think of a administrative concept like a town or a city, but think in terms of something called functional economic area. And by that, what we mean is some level of self-contained economic area. It is a concept that is used quite widely. The US also uses this term basically to capture metropolitan areas. And so a functional economic area would be enclosed in terms of the labor market. People commuting to work would be within that area. Retail day-to-day shopping would be within that area. So you don't need to go out of that area. And in a Central Asian context, for example, we were hearing Almaty. So you can imagine where you have population density that is low, a city like Almaty would be self-contained to a large degree. And as soon as you get out of the city, or a city like Dushanbe, the big cities in Central Asia. But if you think for more densely populated cities like Manila, Greater Manila has 17 or 18 cities within it. And so when we say a city or area generically in the corridor discussion we are going to have, think in terms of functional economic area, which may be self-contained and may have more than one town, administratively defined city or town and villages within it. So those are two things. I just wanted to be clear. We are meaning the same things when we are talking. And then just one other thing I wanted to mention before, because we're going to be talking about all the plus the positives about economic corridor development. So I just wanted to mention that in a very fundamental way, economic corridor development is linked to considerable amount of infrastructure investments, policy reforms, institution building. And so it can also have negative effects if it is not done carefully, if it is not handled well, if it is not well prepared, countries can end up with high level of public debt for poorly designed infrastructure investments. It can come with people getting marginalized and excluded, some people becoming much more benefited. So you can have increased inequality. And even when it works well, and you do end up having a lot of positive impact, there are negative side effects such as congestion and environmental pollution and damage. So those are things that need to be mitigated or minimized in the design of the economic corridor. So having said that, let me start off by learning how to use this. My How does this work? So I can just press this, right?
The one. Arrow down, arrow down.
Sorry, is this one?
Yes, arrow down.
Okay. So how do we get to the start of this?
Press up if it's before. Down.
Okay. Okay, the quick outline of the presentation. I'm just going to go over these a little bit quickly. There is a full report that is got a lot of material. As I said, it was almost 2 years in the making, so there's no way we can cover everything here. And so you will be very much able to access a lot more information in that report, but we'll just go over the rationale for the new framework, the specific approach that we are now talking about when we talk about economic corridors, and then the way to go about or, implementing an economic corridor development program, and the cross-cutting issues that come up based on experience, both in work ADB has done and experience with other countries, other examples of developing economic corridors, the potential pitfalls. And then finally, if we have time available, we will also get into the problems and opportunities that organizations, development organizations may face if they want to take up economic corridor development, internally, and using ADB as the example. But I think these are applicable more widely. So, sorry. So the rationale is very simple. For now 25 years, we have been doing economic corridor development, and initial phases, it has been transport connectivity, and I'm talking about in the Asian context, where ADB has been working. And later on, once you had the regional transport routes invested, then there was trade facilitation done to improve the border procedures to make goods move more easily, transport facilitation to have common standards across countries, and things like that. So that combination of transport highways with some software, that has been done for almost 25 years. And as a result, now most of the transport routes are already invested. And so the demand from the countries for that kind of connectivity is less. the benefits from focusing on that kind of investment alone is less. So partly as a success of the economic corridor program for last 25 years, the demand for the traditional economic corridor projects of transport combined with some software has gone down. Secondly, the nature of trade and the value chains has also changed. Share of agriculture has changed in the global trade. Share of intra-industry and inter-industry trade has changed. Role of services in international trade has been changing and continues to change as technology changes. So again, the standard transport and trade facilitation and transport model is not as useful by itself. And thirdly, countries themselves are demanding more. Countries are realizing that, they want a multi-pronged infrastructure package, policy package that can be delivered for what they need. And so many countries are now undertaking these economic corridor programs. I can give you some examples as we move further, but we have representatives from different countries here, and they can tell us more in their comments, whether it is Thailand, which just started the Eastern Economic Corridor, launched it, Malaysia, which has been working on economic corridors for almost 25 years, India, which is a very ambitious industrial corridor program that started with the Delhi-Mumbai corridor. PRC has been very active. So there are many countries which are now doing quite actively the sophisticated, more complex approach that we are discussing at this conference. Sorry, Ellen, do you want to just take it over? Okay. So here is the definition. Basically, what we are saying is that an economic corridor, don't think in terms of a transport corridor from point A to point B. Think of a geographical area, a functional economic area, and think about how an area can be developed or a group of areas can be developed. So that is the idea behind the economic corridor expanded framework or the refined framework that we're talking about. And that is not just about highways, it's, sorry. Okay, so coming now to the conceptual side, this is just very briefly, the details will be very much available in the report for those who want to get more details. But this is the easiest, functionally, conceptually easiest type of economic corridor to think about, which is a transport corridor, which connects two functional economic areas, two or more, but let's keep it simple. So this is a transport corridor. The blue circles are the functional economic areas. And once you have the transport corridor connecting them, you can build on it the software component, which is, as we were saying, the logistics side, the trade facilitation side, the transport facilitation, and that is what people are also calling trade corridor. So a trade corridor is a transport corridor with a lot more logistics and software components built into it. The blue, the node or the area can be a functional economic area within a country. It can also be a gateway to the rest of the world through maritime trade. or even other types of air connectivity, depends on the usage of the area. You may be having high value goods being shipped through air or through maritime trade for different type of commodities. And so in principle, that is the two simplest types of economic corridors, which have been in the past worked upon by countries and development organizations. Now you can think of a space. The rectangular area we are talking about is a region, and within that you have many different functional economic areas. And this is a regional development corridor where you may try and develop not just transport links connecting the areas, but each area itself. So you may have urban development investments going on. You may have the industrial policy targeting some types of industries in some areas, or you may have special economic zones, and of course you may have a lot of transport, ICT, power, all the standard infrastructure that you need to develop economic activity in any region. And then there's a fourth type of economic corridor that we find discussed in the literature, which is something which was an example was so the regional development corridor. You will see many examples, including, for example, the industrial corridor program in India, and then the various corridors under the One Belt, One Road, the Belt and Road Initiative, which cover fairly large distances across regions, not just in PRC, but across the globe. The fourth example is what we call an agglomeration type of corridor, and an example of that is the Almaty-Bishkek economic corridor that was mentioned earlier, where you take two areas and you try and make them into a single economic area, functionally integrated to benefit from the agglomeration economies. Not just two, it can be more than two. And there, for example, the agglomeration areas that PRC has some fairly really large agglomeration economic areas that they have announced and that they're also implementing some, are also an example. So these are four categories of economic corridor that we can think of. The simplest ones, transport, then the trade, and then the regional development, and then the agglomeration. And this is it's a categorization that is not watertight. You may have combinations of the different categories in practice, but it's a useful way to think. When you see an economic corridor program, you can ask yourself what category it is, and you can further think of it in terms of two different categories. The first two, the trade and transport corridors, they are focusing on movement of goods, and we call them the M-type corridors. And the second two, the regional development and the agglomeration, are talking about a particular space being developed, and we call them the S-type corridor. And between the two categories, the M-type and the S-type, you have these four possible corridors. And what we are saying in our framework now is, let's move beyond M-type, because that is not as useful anymore. Countries have moved beyond it. The needs have changed. Let's focus on S-type corridors and try and develop the operational thinking about it, the analytical thinking about it, how we can help countries implement the S-type corridors. How to operationalize this? So again, think about economic corridor not as a single project, but as a combination of many types of interventions to develop a particular area or a region comprising areas, right? So that can become very complex. And so how does one operationalize? Where should we implement economic corridor development? Starting from that to how do we do it? What type of program should we design? And those questions become fairly complex when you're actually trying to develop a program for economic corridor development. And this is a framework that is used to help clarify what objectives you want to set up as a planner, as a government official, as a development partner, thinking about how to implement the corridor development program, how to design one. So we divide the decision-making problem into 4 parts. On the horizontal axis, you can think in terms of moving from national to regional as you're defining your corridor space. And on the vertical axis, we are thinking of the transition from M type to S type economic corridor. So for example, if you focus on the zone 1, that is just a basic transport corridor, right? And if you look at zone 3 moving to the right, that is a basic transport corridor which is cross-border. And that is the economic corridor development work under regional cooperation that has been quite popular. Whereas if you move from zone 1 to zone 2 up, you're talking about the S-type corridor. You're moving away from the just movement type. So you need to bring in all the different types of investments, infrastructure, whether it is urban development, energy, the information and communications technology, plus the soft side, the software for making goods and people move within that region more easily and with less cost. And then, of course, if you move to zone 4, you're talking about doing all the S type of corridor development with all the complexity, but now doing it cross-border. So that is even more complex. And particularly in countries where you have decentralization, so that not all decisions are made at one level at the top, then even the zone 2, the S-type domestic economic corridor can be quite complicated in terms of the amount of coordination that is required between the central government, the provincial government, even local government, and then of course, different ministries or agencies at each level of the government. So the coordination issues become quite complex. They need to be handled because many corridors we have seen in practice fail in their effectiveness because of coordination problems. So this is a framework that tells you, you can say, where am I now? Am I in zone 1? Am I in zone 2? And then we can decide, where do we want to go? Do we want to go to zone 1, zone 2? You cannot go from zone 1 to zone 4 directly. So you can either move from zone 1 to zone 2, or zone 1 to zone 3. And so, for example, if you take a situation like in the GMS program in Southeast Asia, which has been a pioneer in developing economic corridors in the regional cooperation space, they are very much ahead on the zone 2, not fully achieved the smooth cross-border movement that they would want, that they've been targeting, but that has been the direction. So the starting point can be thought of as in zone 2, and zone 3, and then they can be exploring either moving to zone 3 or zone 4, if depending on how ambitious they are. Whereas in some parts of Central Asia, you may find that zone 1 is the starting point, that even getting the main basic connectivity between the regions. And for example, the SCAREC program is doing a new corridor for Shymkent, Tashkent, Khujan, and they may find that a zone 1 may be a useful starting point. It can just vary, but the objective of this framework is to allow you to say, okay, here is where we are, and this is where we want to go, and then think in terms of what kind of investment program and reforms and institutions will be needed to do that. These are the guiding principles for developing the program, and I will not explain much because they are very much self-explanatory and we can save time. But the first step, if you're going to do a corridor program, economic corridor development, is to have a conceptualization. It is not enough like it used to be in the past that you go in and say, okay, I'm going to build a highway from here to here, and then it will just become a corridor. It doesn't work that way. It has never worked that way. So you have to have a concept. Okay, this is how this space or area is going to look like from 20 years from now, 15 years from now. These are its potential strengths, and then we can develop them and so on. So that whole package conceptually there has to be a vision, and then a lot of consultation is required, because remember, we are talking about bringing together many different types of investments and reforms. Some of them will be distributional consequences. Some people will benefit, some will not benefit, some region may benefit, others may lose. So there's a lot of consultation that governments need to be active right from the beginning. You need to have a government buy-in. Obviously, you need champions at the federal, at the top level, but then you also need to be able to have the lower levels of government, if they are powerful or influential, to be involved in the design. And then a lot of technical preparation, because again, you would not build a road without spending 6 months preparing the engineering design, all the details. Economic corridor development has a lot more of investments potentially over a long period. So you need to do the homework. You have to do the technical and economic analysis. You have to look at the environmental, the social safeguards, all different types of things for the program, not just one project. And then you also have to be looking at the role the private sector can play. So private sector, it has to be attractive. Ultimately, it has to be a way for bringing private sector into the area. So that technical work is very important. It can take almost a year and a half in practice. We have seen even longer, up to 2 years of just technical preparation. The coordination mechanism I already referred to. There are many stakeholders, whether it is the different layers of government, the different agencies within each layer. If you have a cross border, then you can multiply that by number of countries. And of course, you have the private sector, you have development partners, you have the civil society. And so how do you coordinate to make decisions? That is important. And the design of the mechanism is also in practice. We have seen, Malaysia, for example, has a design where they got the prime minister, the chief minister of the province involved, but the design of how the funds flow, who has the power, the details matter. So, it's something that needs to be taken seriously. And then critical, of course, is the resource mobilization and partnerships, because you need, without that, there will be little. Public investment alone cannot really do substantial economic corridor development in any region. So, and then, of course, you come finally to actual projects. That's where, if you are thinking of the old style corridor development, transport corridor will come in at this stage. But there's already a lot more other infrastructure investments, policies, and institutions that are part of the package. And then, of course, very important, once you're implementing it, to have milestones, not just at project level, but at the program level for economic corridor. How many jobs have you created? How much additional investment has been mobilized? And of course, at a project level, the monitoring and evaluation, and then feed that back to designing the next steps of the program. So, cross-cutting issues that come up is there in almost every economic corridor. What will be the role of public sector? Initial stages, public sector may play a much more important role. Later stages, it may be more active in the coordination role, in the governance, which is another issue that comes up, to make sure the corridor development, all the investments, resources mobilized, all that effort is inclusive, and that there's transparency on the decision making, on allocation of resources. Contracts are not, like no corruption. All those governance issues become very important, because if those are problematic, then you will start losing political support, and the corridor may over time get stalled. And the social inclusion and environmental impact, again, over the longer term, they build up. If they are not handled well, then they can destroy any program. So it's very important to think about them right from the beginning and make sure you get those right. Excuse me. These are some of the potential pitfalls. Again, very self-evident, so I'm not going to spend time on that, because I think we have run out of time, and I just want to quickly cover the difficulties, the opportunities, and the challenges that development organizations, since we have colleagues here from development organizations. So using ADB as an example, what we can say is that there are many advantages to begin with, which is the ability to mobilize resources, the experience with doing infrastructure investments of different types, the ability to customize financial instruments to the type of needs, whether it is a policy reform package or whether it is a public-private partnership modality, or whether it is a private sector funding for private sector projects. Development organizations have a lot of things where they already have the experience. The ability to bring, like we have here in this room, bring people together, different stakeholders can be brought together. That convening power is a big advantage when you're taking on something complex like the economic corridor development. Challenges are like any bureaucracy, people have their own box and they are happy in that box. So if you're trying to do coordination across many different types of sectors or different investment programs, then it's multi-sector approaches are a challenge. Software, trade facilitation, transport facilitation, capacity building, institutional development, these things, they take time and they are not getting money out of the organization. And we all have targets for lending. So that is not so easy to convince management that we have to spend time and not worry about, lending targets. So those are operational difficulties that most development organizations will face. And so that is something where in practice, as we work on the new approach to economic corridor development, we will have to deal with these, find ways around them. In ADB, we are currently undergoing a new operating model, it is called, where the effort is to try and get into the ability to have multi-sector interventions. And maybe that will be something that they will, be successful. And that can then be useful in taking on something like a refined or the new approach to economic corridor development. So let me stop there. And I'm sorry, I think I took a little bit longer than planned, but thank you very much for your attention. And if there's any comments or questions or clarifications, we'll be glad to discuss. Thank you.
Thank you, Pradeep, for the very comprehensive presentation. Yeah, you have covered the evolution of the concept of economic corridor. You talked about the types of economic corridors, and also you discussed approaches to economic corridor development, highlighting some of the key principles and also specify some of the stages. Yeah, and also equally important, you reminded also some of the pitfalls that should be avoided. So thank you again for very comprehensive presentation. Now we have some time for some quick questions. Actually, during the second part of this session, the delegations will have the chance to talk about their own experiences in economic corridor development. So at this stage, I'd like to invite you to ask some of the quick questions or seek clarifications or make some general comments. Yeah, okay. Yes, please. Please identify yourself first and then, ask your question. Press the...
Okay. Sorry, I am Yuan Malwaraj from Sri Lanka. Thank you very much for your comprehensive presentation and details content it. So there's a new concept for ECD developments. So main focus is to spatial development. For that word, with that word, we have to be very mindful. So spatial development, our people are very keen on that, to focusing on that city developments. city beautifications, infrastructure constructions, very eager to go for the physical infrastructure developments, forgetting the outcome of the economic corridor development concept. So it's better if we can identify very clear definition and what kind of elements we are targeting. So how we can prioritize them according to our investment plan. So those are very important points. So my question is, does the new ECD approach mean ADB will not be financing transport projects in MEM countries or supporting transport and trade facilitations under its RCI programs?
Shall we just answer right away or take? Maybe I'll just answer.
No problem, the one by one, yeah.
Okay. So thank you. Yeah, that's a important thing to clarify. Two things that you mentioned. One is whether ADB will be financing, transport, basic transport projects under an economic corridor development program, let's say, because of course, if in a different context, government and ADB may agree that they need to build, let's say, a rural road for development of a particular region. But under an economic corridor program, I think the clarification that is important is that it is not that ADB will exclude any type of funding for any project. It's more about bringing together a investment program under an economic corridor development, identifying the investment projects that would be needed for that particular area, and then identifying the resources from where the projects may be financed, which of those could be financed by development partners, including ADB, and the development partners may co-finance individual projects within that. And of course, if there is government interest in privatizing some infrastructure down the line, we're at this stage talking about financing it. So bring in public-private partnership if that is a possibility. So all those things. So the short answer is that ADB would, of course, continue to finance all types of projects that it has been funding, even under economic corridor development program, basic transport projects, as long as they are part of the program. Just a quick comment on another issue, which is, how do you identify where to do this kind of a program? So it's important to understand that an economic corridor program cannot manufacture economic growth and activity out of nothing. So you have to choose areas where there is some economic potential. And it was not covered here, but it is covered in the actual report, that the economic geography matters, not just in how you design a program, but whether you should have a economic corridor program to begin with. And just to take an extreme example, if you go into the middle of Sahara Desert, you would not say, okay, we're going to have an economic corridor development program here. Although, if you take the example of Dubai, out of nowhere, you have a huge economic engine today. which will
Actually, AIB has set a target for our financing. By the year 2030, we would aim at 25% to 30% of our financing on connectivity projects. So talking about the cross-border connectivity projects, I'm very appreciate, Professor, you have clarified those different concepts of the corridors from the M type to S type. It's very interesting to note about that because also trying to define the concept of the cross-border connectivity when we have set our target in AIB. So when we achieve that, what would we mean by cross-border connectivity? So we try to broaden some of the concepts. I think that very much linked with what you have clarified today on those 4 zones. So I noticed that, I mean, some of the member countries, as you mentioned, that would choose different categories as a starting point. And you mentioned about GMS, they are more developed, they have almost completed the zone 1, and they can start with zone 2. So different members
by themselves would be a national policy issue, but SMEs within a corridor development program will depend on what your corridor development program is trying to do. And that will determine how you approach SMEs. Thank you.
Okay, Napo, please.
Thank you. My name is Narayan. I'm from Nepal. First of all, thank you for this comprehensive and innovative ECD framework, developing this ECD framework and presenting very nicely. So my the different type of question, I just wanted to know that there are several development approaches being developed in the recent days, leading by various development partners, some developed by World Bank and ADB and UN system and etc. So we have the recent development approach that called green, inclusive, and green. Greedy approach. Green. Resilient, inclusive development approach. At the same time, there is a global partnership for effective development cooperation initiatives, dealing with the similar, approaches. For example, engaging private sector for the development, and there is also a blended finance approach. How to engage private sector and how to leverage private sector into the development. So, how does this ECD framework connect to these contemporary approaches, to avoid the confusion on a part of the developing country like Nepal? Thank you.
So, Pradeep, just very brief answers, yeah.
I think, it's nothing that is separate category as such, because these are all at one level, something like environmental sustainability, climate change. These are issues that are affecting everything we do. Not just development partners, but governments, because it's a very fundamental issue that the global, it's a global challenge. So in the context of economic corridor program, developing a program, you may bring in environmental issues. Again, there is no generic or standard economic corridor development. Every corridor is unique. So it really, you have to define where if for example, if you're in Nepal and you're doing a tourism corridor and there are ecologically sensitive areas, then environmental components will be very highly ranked in your program design, and how you finance it will be dependent also on the environmental issues that you're identifying, because there'll be other different types of resources available under the different types of initiatives that are on. So there is no standard answer for this. It is very much dependent on the specific program that you are designing as part of your economic corridor development. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I know many of you have many more questions, but as moderator, I have to conclude this part because we have the other parts to go on. So I'd encourage you to continue discussion, to ask questions to Pradeep or other ADB colleagues, or talk to each other during the coffee break. So once again, I thank our presenter, Mr. Pradeep, and also want to thank Deputy Minister for joining the opening session. Thank you.
We will continue session 1 after a short coffee break. But before we proceed to a 20-minute coffee break, can we invite everybody for a group photo just outside of the conference room? Please be back by 11:15. Thank you.
Enggak, siguro.
Can we request everybody to come back, please? You can bring your coffee and food inside the conference room. Thank you.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, probably we should start. Just now, in the first part of this session, we had very lively discussions. I know many of you have a lot more questions, yeah, to ask. But given the time limit, we have to be quick. Now let's move to the second part of session one. So each country delegation will have a chance to make some very brief comments on the economic framework. Now, if your country has already implemented an economic corridor development, please highlight the similarities or differences to the approaches and the stages mentioned in the presentation. If your country has not implemented the ECD initiative, probably you can also share with us your insights and the potential benefits of the ECD, and also to discuss main challenges your country might face in designing and implementing ECD. I have a long list of the delegations that we need to finish by 12 if we want to have launch on time. So I suggest each delegation will make comments brief and concise. Each country will have up to 3 minutes. We will start with the countries in the CARIC program. And first, I like to call the representative of Azerbaijan, Mr. Alfred Mamadov, Research Fellow, Economic and Scientific Research Institute. Yeah, in Azerbaijan, please. Yes, please.
Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, I'm honored to to stand before you today to discuss economic corridor development and its potential relevance and benefits for Azerbaijan. The Asian Development Bank, as well as the CAREC program, play a crucial role in promoting economic growth and regional cooperation, making this conference an ideal platform to explore possibilities of ECD in Azerbaijan. First, let's delve into ECD framework and its implementation. Guidelines. ECD refers, as far as we know, to combination of many hardware or physical infrastructure investments, software or policies, and regulations linked to the optimal use of hardware, along with the soft components that improve markets, governance, and business investment climate, and other elements essential for the successful economic corridor. To make this concept more relevant to Azerbaijan, we can consider several key points. First of all, a tailored approach. Azerbaijan's unique geographic location at the crossroads of Europe and Asia offers immense potential for ECD. Tailoring the ECD framework to capitalize on these advantages, location is essential. This could involve prioritizing specific sectors like energy, transport, and logistics. Stakeholder engagement, it's another big challenge that we can come through. Ensuring active participation and buy-in from both the public and private sector is of the great importance in terms of the stakeholder engagement. Azerbaijan's government in the state strategy program, which named 2022-2026 socioeconomic program, offered that relevant stakeholders should collaborate to create a conducive environment for ECD project development. Then infrastructure investment. ECD requires significant infrastructure development. It's crucial to identify the critical infrastructure gaps in Azerbaijan's economic corridors and prioritize investments in sectors that align with the country's economic goals. And lastly, the regulatory framework. It's important as well. A clear and transparent regulatory framework is essential. Azerbaijan can benefit from reviewing and potentially streamlining regulations related to trade, customs, and transportation to enhance the corridor efficiency. Now let's address whether Azerbaijan has already implemented the ECD and identify any similarities or differences in its approach compared to ECD framework. Enactment of the Law of Alat Free Economic Zone in 2018, coupled with the successful development of Baku International Sea Trade Routes, are the key components of the nation's ambitions to establish identified as prominent transport and economic center within Central Eurasia. These accomplishments serve as a solid foundation for the country to compile various transportation routes or initiatives along the CAREC corridors. As Azerbaijan fulfills its potential essential hub for transportation, it will increase its potential to reach out to other regions of the continent. And another examples for the ECD principles in Azerbaijan can be included like the Baku-Tbilisi-Kars Railway, the North Source Transport Corridor, Southern Gas Corridor, and Middle Corridor. These projects aim to improve the connectivity, enhance trade, and boost economic development within the region. However, there may still be opportunities to refine and expand these efforts, taking into account the evolving economic landscape and regional dynamics. Azerbaijan could consider closer collaboration with neighboring countries and seek partnerships with international organizations to maximize the benefits of these projects. In case Azerbaijan fully implements, as we talked here today, ECD initiative, there will be several potential benefits that to consider. First of all, the economic growth. In Azerbaijan, the western parts of the country, the less developed than when compared to the eastern parts, and the economic or the corridors that which implemented by the ECD principles can stimulate the economic growth by promoting trade, investment, and job creation. Azerbaijan can leverage its strategic location to promote a pivotal trade hub connection Europe and Asia. And regional integration. ECD fosters regional integration by enhancing connectivity with neighboring countries. This can lead to stronger diplomatic ties, increased cooperation, and improved stability, especially in the Caucasian region. That's really something that we need to have. And infrastructural development, ECD necessitates significant infrastructure investments, which can improve overall infrastructure quality in Azerbaijan, because if we are going through with the infrastructure development, we have to imply some very important ECD standards, benefiting not only corridor project, but entire nation. And diversification. Unfortunately, as the old Soviet countries, we are mostly dependent on several products to export. Therefore, diversification throughout the corridors is of the great importance to reduce dependency on oil and gas exports. However, it's crucial to acknowledge the potential challenge in designing and implementing ECD projects in Azerbaijan. First of all, the financing. ECD projects often require substantial financial resources, and Azerbaijan may need to seek international financing or adopt innovative financing mechanisms, or maybe the regular framework. Coordinating efforts among the various stakeholders, including government agencies and the private sector, can be challenging, but it's essential for successful ECD implementation. And today's world, environmental and social impacts is of great importance as well. Therefore, ECD projects must consider environmental and social impacts on the region as well as on the country. Ensuring sustainable development is critical. Political and geopolitical factors. Azerbaijan geopolitical context can be considered very complex and may influence the ECG project somehow, and requiring the careful diplomacy and risk management. To sum up, secondly, economic corridor developments hold significant promise for Azerbaijan, aligning with the country's strategic goals and geographic advantage. By tailoring the ECD framework to its unique circumstances, enhancing stakeholder agreement, and addressing the challenges thoughtfully, Azerbaijan can harness the full potential of economic corridors to drive growth, regional integration, and prosperity. Thank you for your attention, and I look forward to fruitful discussion today about the ECD in Azerbaijan. Thank you.
Thank you, Azerbaijan. Very much appreciate your point, particularly regarding the role of ECD in economic diversification. I think this point is relevant to most of the countries, particularly in the landlocked countries. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, I'd like to call the representative of PRC, Mr. Guo Zhehua, Deputy Director, Department of International Trade and Economic Affairs, Ministry of Finance. Yeah, you can speak from your chair. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Zhang, for giving me the floor. Dear colleagues, it is my great pleasure to attend this conference in beautiful Georgia to have this opportunity to share our views on ECD and regional cooperation. At present, the combined forces of global changes and the pandemic, both unseen in a century, are profoundly reshaping the global governance system. Facing the uncertainties about global economic recovery, it's a critical and the right time for us to sit together to share experience on ECD and explore ways to expand and enhance ECD operations. We welcome the guidance note on ECD presented by ADB. We are pleased to note that the GMS program is integrated in this work as a sample of best practices. Under the joint efforts and the strategic leaderships of President Xi Jinping and leaders of 5 other GMS countries, the GMS has developed into one of the most vigorous and promising sub-regional cooperation mechanisms and become a model of regional cooperation. Inspired by the guidance note, we would like to come up with some observations on the future development of GMS. First, further leveraging the GMS Economic Corridor Governors Forum to deepen exchanges and cooperation. Having been held for 5 years in a row, this forum plays an important role in deepening exchanges and cooperation and promoting trade among GMS economies. we should continue to make full use of this mechanism by enriching its content and forms to help local communities better integrate into regional industry and value chains. At the same time, we should mobilize and motivate local governments to maintain regular communication and improve the mechanism of exchanges and cooperation in such fields as transportation, energy, environment, agriculture, tourism, and human resources, so as to prepare cooperation results for the GMS Summit of Leaders. Second, promoting regional economic integration, deepening and broadening trade and economic cooperation. Regional industrial and supply chains could be better integrated and improved by giving full play to the advantages brought by the China-ASEAN FTA and RCEP. Preferential FTA policies and trade facilitation measures could be better utilized to expand trade within the GMS countries, especially trade of agricultural products. Alignment of rules, regulations, management, and standards could be promoted steadily to achieve high standard institutional opening up. Third, promoting green and low carbon development and the digital economy to be new growth points for regional cooperation. At present, green and digital industries are booming, and the relevant international rules are taking shape faster. It's necessary to strengthen green and digital policy exchanges and coordination among GMS members, carry out technical assistance and capacity building to promote industrial cooperation and infrastructure investment. In this way, we can help economies in this sub-region to better integrate into the development process and help enterprises, especially SMEs, to share development dividends. We need to seize opportunities of the digital economy development, promote trade facilitation with digitalization, promote international cooperation in cross-border e-commerce, and foster new growth points for regional cooperation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Guo, for your very brief but very highly relevant points. Particularly, I like your idea of paying more attention to green development in the regional cooperation. Actually, ADB is putting a lot of emphasis on climate change, environmental protection, and ADB's president has declared that ADB wants to be a climate bank. So this is really a new area which ADB and the member countries should work together. Thanks again for your comments. Next, I'd like to call a representative from our host country, Georgia, Ms. Miriam Evandias, Senior Specialist, Transport and Logistics Development Policy Department from Ministry for Economic and Social Development.
Thank you. Hello. Welcome to Georgia once again. As we also mentioned many times, Georgia's favorable location between East and West that enables it to play the greater role in bridging different countries and regions. Moreover, having a strong track record of implementing key economic reforms in the country, Georgia continues its effort to further facilitate international trade and better integrate into the global economy. Hence, it comes to no surprise that improvement of transport connectivity through both hard and soft infrastructure development is a priority issue for us. Key transport infrastructure projects such as East-West Highway construction, railway modernization, Baku-Tbilisi-Kars new railway line, and Anaklia deep sea port development will ensure sufficient capacities in Georgia to meet future demands. Over the course of decade, Georgia, together with its partner countries, has been actively engaged in different connectivity initiatives aimed at developing new transit routes between Europe and Asia, like Traseka Middle Corridor, Black Sea Caspian Sea Corridor, just a few of them. Our goal is to achieve more resilient, effective and environmentally friendly multimodal transportation systems and shorten the economic distance with neighboring partner countries through the corridor. We are well aware that developing effective and efficient corridor can't be achieved individually, and it should be accomplished by tight cooperation. Nowadays, transport connectivity is imperative for development since good connectivity provides access to opportunities for people, links producers with markets, and help business scale. In this context, the concept of economic corridors gains increasing relevance, and it envisages the development of more integrated systems supporting the growth of industrial clusters and economic zones and maximizing the value creation and synergies. That's the principle we welcome to wider application of ECD, considering its long-term benefits such as economic diversification, regional development, and economic decentralization, knowledge spillover that can also contribute to reducing inequalities within countries and regions. In closing, I would like to reiterate that Georgia remains a reliable partner when it comes to the improvement of regional connectivity. We are ready for closer cooperation to enhance the performance and the competitiveness. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Georgia. Thank you very much for confirming the country's commitment to provide an improved connectivity serving Europe and the Asia market. Yeah, thank you again. Next, I'd like to call a representative from Kazakhstan, Mr. Bibigo Masarbayev, Deputy Director of the Department of International Economic Cooperation.
Уважаемые участники конференции, позвольте от имени Министерства национальной экономики Республики Казахстан приветствовать вас на данной конференции и выразить благодарность правительству Грузии и Азиатскому банку развития за отличную организацию данного мероприятия «Теплый прием». В первую очередь хотелось бы также поблагодарить господина Прадипа за такую детальную презентацию. Руководство, которое фокусируется на формировании нового, комплексного и пространственного подхода к развитию экономических коридоров и региональном сотрудничестве и интеграции. Считаем своевременным и необходимым предлагаемым в руководстве переход от базовой рамочной структуры создания экономических коридоров к более пространственному и инклюзивному. Что касается Казахстана, то для Республики Казахстан особенно важно, что данный подход включает в себя инвестиции в развитие твердой и мягкой инфраструктуры, установление прочных связей между агломерациями и рынками странами-участников, а также инклюзивное развитие не только транспортной отрасли, но и энергетики, информационно-коммуникационных технологий, приграничное сотрудничество, сельское хозяйство, региональный туризм, что в совокупности позволит найти комплексное решение существующих проблем и вызовов. При этом считаем, что необходимо указать, что каждый экономический коридор уникален, и условия развития будут варьироваться для каждой конкретной ситуации. В этой связи считаем, что представленная новая рамочная структура может отличаться, варьироваться, объединяться, исключаться в зависимости от каждого конкретного случая. В этой связи стоит обратиться к практическому опыту Казахстана в региональных экономических коридорах. У нас на сегодня существует два экономических коридора. Это Алматы-Бишкек и Шымкент-Ташкент-Худжанд. Данные проекты могут служить примером предлагаемой АБР новой рамочной структуры РЭК в качестве пространственной концепции, так как они подразумевают строгий трансграничный географический фокус, углубление региональной экономической и социальной интеграции, а также развитию смежных отраслей экономики во всех странах-участниках. Как было отмечено, руководство определяет 4 зоны этапа развития операционной структуры РЭК. В этой связи необходимо ответить, что наш коридор, вот этот Шымкент, Ташкент, Кужан, фокусируется на комбинации зон 2 и 3 с последующим переходом к зоне 4, включает такие характерные мероприятия в рамках РЭК, как развитие транспортной связанности, соединение цепочек добавленной стоимостей, развитие сельскохозяйственных и промышленных кластеров, регионального туризма, сферы услуг, в том числе финансовых и профессиональных, а также использование территориальных преимуществ и стимулирование экономического роста. Кроме того, в рамках коридора определяются 6 приоритетных направлений. Кроме транспортных и транзитных элементов, он включает в себя пространственное региональное развитие, как это отмечалось ранее. В этой связи отмечаем, что коридор Шымкент, Ташкент, Худжанд является коридором С-типа, в основе которого лежат принципы регионального развития. К основным проблемам, существующим сегодня в развитии именно коридора Шымкент, Ташкент, Худжанд, можно отнести недостаточную межгосударственную координацию между участвующими странами на центральном и региональном уровне. Кроме того, нерешенным остается вопрос формирования институциональной структуры коридора, включая создание руководящего органа и рабочих группы по определенным отраслям. Также остается вопрос наполнения коридора пулом потенциальных проектов и обеспечения активного участия частного сектора, в том числе прямых инвестиций. По нашему мнению, решение этих вопросов лежит в тесном и открытом сотрудничестве всех участвующих стран при поддержке АБР, в том числе посредством новой рамочной структуры РЭК и ее руководящих принципов. Спасибо за внимание.
Thank you, Kazakhstan. Thank you very much for sharing your view about the ECD. Particularly, you emphasized the need for holistic approach, and also highlighted the need to tailor the ECD approach to the contract context. Also, thank you for sharing your vision and plans for the Shymkent, Tashkent, and the Kuzhan economic corridor development. Next, I'd like to call representative of the Kyrgyz Republic, Mr. Dabek Maksabetov, head of the Donor and Technical Assistance Coordination Division, Ministry of Economy and Commerce.
Thank you very much. So first of all, let me thank the Asian Bank and the government of Georgia for organizing this conference at the high level and for warm welcome. Regarding the economic corridor development, we'd like to note the comprehensive presentation of Mr. Pradeep Srivastav. Thank you very much, and outline his role in development of the project Almaty-Bishkek Economic Corridor in 2013. For 10 years, ABEC has achieved significant success, which indicates the chosen correct approach and concept in the formation of this economic corridor. If the earlier focus on the development of transport corridors, and almost every country is a part of transport corridor, the reality has shown that economic corridors with excellent connectivity, including transport and digital, unhindered movement of people and goods across the borders, as well as the cross-border value chains and cluster of economic activity, can help countries to attract investment, develop the tourism sector, urban agglomerations, manufacturing, the service sector, and diversify the structure of export. Regarding the economic corridor development, we would like to suggest that Asian Development Bank structure the guidance for further use by government agencies in the development and implementation of initiatives for the development of economic corridors. And in our opinion, special attention in development of economic corridors should take into account global climate change and lay down measures to improve the environment in urban agglomerations. Because as you all know, climate change is causing enormous damage to literally every inhabitant of our planet. And the region of Central Asia with the dry climate is not an exception. Regarding the achievements of ABEC project, I would like to tell in detail in the afternoon because I'll give a presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kyrgyz Republic, for sharing your insights. Particularly your point of ADB to promote the use of the guidance note is very well taken. Taking this opportunity, I also like to encourage all of you after you're going back to your own country, please share this guidance note with your counterparts in other ministries or agencies. And also Kyrgyz Republic, thank you for highlighting the importance of climate change. Actually, Kyrgyz program, under Kyrgyz program, ADB is working with member countries to develop some strategy related to climate and RCI. Thank you again. Next, I'd like to invite a representative of Pakistan, Mr. Shakir Mohammed, Secretary, the Federal Board of Revenue, Ministry of Finance. Yeah, Pakistan, please.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you very much. I would like to thank ADB for providing us this opportunity of coming and attending this conference. It's a very useful conference, and I have I'm of the view that I'll get maximum exposure and interaction with people from the ADB and other participants. First of all, I would like to highlight a few things from the guidance note. It's basically a very comprehensive document. It has just provided a brief history that how ADB started this integration concept and how it moved from M type to S type of the economic corridors. As Sir Pradeep has also mentioned in very detail that there are 4 ways of developing an ECD. That is the transport corridor, the trade corridor, and then a regional development corridor and the special transformation. Basically, I appreciate the concept of selecting a particular area for an economic corridor as given in the guidance note, which provides that if you are going to select any particular area for having an ECD, so these 5 things must be kept in mind. It should be in a particular area where access to the market is easy. Similarly, access to the raw materials should be more easy. There should be a good infrastructure available because we cannot build an ECD in a desert and in a mountainous regions. There should be a safe and business-friendly environment, and the policies of the government or the public intervention should be business-friendly. I like these things. Similarly, the benefits enumerated in the guidance note, like the ECD can bring the benefits. I like it and I want to share it with the other participants. Like the ECD leads to economic diversification. It also leads to regional development and it will enhance the competitiveness among the different industrial sectors. It will lead to entrepreneurship development. Definitely, it will create jobs, and it will also lead to institutional development. And all these benefits will combine together and will lead to socio-economic growth of a particular country or a particular region. Regarding my country, Pakistan, I would like to share that basically, as the Deputy Minister of Georgia told that Georgia is in the crossroads, Similarly, I would like to say that Pakistan is also situated in the crossroad of many regions, and it serves as a linkage between the Central Asian region, between the South Asia, and it will also like help in connecting Far East with Central Asia and South Asia. So we have like borders. We have borders with China. We have border with Afghanistan, which further leads to and connect to Central Asia. We have a land border with Iran, which will connect us and the rest of the region to the Turkey and to the Europe. Then we have like three ports. Karachi, we have two ports in Karachi, and we have a Gwadar port. Similarly, Pakistan has the opportunity, and it has started developing like M type of corridors through CPEC, where China is investing, and it is under the Road and Build initiative of Chinese government. It will connect China with Pakistan and will further lead to connection of Iran and the rest of the countries. So we have all those things. And similarly, I would like to mention that ADB is currently doing two projects in Pakistan. One is the integrated transit trade management system. It is executed on the Pak-Afghanistan border at Torkham and Chaman, the two district towns, the border towns, and it is under almost under process and will be completed by the end of this year. So this integrated transit trade management system will help us in facilitating transit trade of the Central Asian region and of Afghanistan as well. In that backdrop, we have concluded transit trade agreements with Uzbekistan back in 2021, and the transit cargo is now clearing since 2022. We have recently concluded our transit trade agreement with Tajikistan, and our transit trade agreement with Kazakhstan is under process and will be completed soon. So basically, we are working on that, the concept of ADB, of integrating different regions. So these transit trade agreements are basically tools used for that integration. Then we have a very robust clearance system in Pakistan, customs clearance through VBOC, web-based One Customs. So we have three channels of clearance: clearing the cargo, red, yellow, and green channel. So in green channel, we don't have any interaction of the customs authorities. The cargo is cleared automatically if an importer or a trader has a good profile. Similarly, almost 50 to 55% of the incoming cargo and 80% of the outgoing cargoes are cleared in green channel. So we have almost interaction of the customs authorities only up to 20-25% of the cargo. The rest of the cargo is cleared without any interaction with the customs people. Similarly, we have developed the single window, Pakistan single window, with the active assistance of ADB. It is almost complete now. We are working on integrating our single window with other single windows like that of China, Uzbekistan. We are working on it. Then we are developing the EDI communication system with our neighboring countries. We have started negotiation with Iran, Uzbekistan, and with China, that we will do EDI messaging regarding the trade between among these countries. Similarly, we have a very great potential of trade in our country. We have a GDP of around $380 billion. We import up to almost $60 billion per year, and our exports to the rest of the world is around $30 billion from Pakistan. We must have, we have some priorities areas that is like the ADB can assist us in particularly in zone 3 policies, like we require certain areas development. Similarly, we need some space-based sector development. We also need agricultural development, because basically we are an agricultural economy, an agrarian economy, and our exports are mainly consisted of agricultural inputs. Similarly, we must need seek assistance of the ADB in controlling our urbanization. We have a very maximum ratio of urbanization trends in Pakistan. Similarly, we need multimodal transportation system with the rest of the world. Similarly, our relations with Afghanistan are of basic concerns, because this, like as I mentioned, that we are developing the ITTMS projects with the assistance of ADB, but on the other side of the border in Afghanistan, no such development is like taking place there. Similarly, we have transit agreements with the Central Asian states, in which Afghanistan is like the main link. All these cargoes will go through Afghanistan. So line order situation, the Afghan government, these are the basically issues faced by us. Similarly, Afghanistan is not included in the CARIC organization, so their inclusion will like definitely change the whole dynamics of the CARIC. Similarly, we have energy problems. We have problems in our tourism sector. So if like ADB is interested in investing in those areas, it will serve a great purpose and will benefit a lot number of people in Pakistan. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pakistan, for your positive comments on the guidance note, and also thank you for sharing Pakistan's progress in terms of improving transit arrangement, custom modernization, single window development. And also thank you for specifying the areas where you need ADB's assistance. So I believe these points are very well taken. Now our colleagues in the working on a CARIC program will follow up with you. Thank you again. Next, I'd like to call representative of Tajikistan, Mr. Ashboy Solan Zoda, First Deputy Minister, Ministry of Economic Development and Trade.
Thank you. First of all, let me express my gratitude to ADB for organizing this event in the beautiful city of Georgia, Tbilisi. The ECD initiative being implemented by the support of ADB is timely and in reality covers a number of objectives, particularly for landlocked countries. Through the implementation of the project of economic corridor Shymkent, Tashkent, and Khujand, we will be able to improve the economic condition not only these three cities, but also the regions, cities, and districts that around of the corridor, and also bring the relationship between our countries to a higher level. The development of the regional economic corridor has become increasingly important in the region. At the same time, the opening of Tajikistan and strengthening ties between neighboring countries, in particular with Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan, adds a new impetus to the development of regional economic corridors. It should be noted that more than 15% of population of Central Asia lives in the territory of mentioned corridor. More than 26 of the foreign trade turnover of Republic of Tajikistan follows on Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan. The volume of mutual turnover of Tajikistan with Kazakhstan in 2022 compared to 2021 increased 22%, and with Uzbekistan 24%. The Tajikistan priority is the improvement of transport logistic infrastructure, and particularly is specific area for trade facility and improving border procedures. It should be noted that the transport and logistics centers are the main link in the supply chain for Tajikistan and other countries. That is why for Tajikistan, the priority is the effective structure of transport and logistics at the national level, and it is a serious factor in increasing the country's transport and transit potential. Concluding, I can say that trade connectivity will increase by implementing this project, taking into account the following important aspects. First, creating multimodal trade logistics center in this corridor in order to shift from zone 1 to zone 2. Second, construction of a new high-speed road highway and in the future railway too. And third, widespread green economy principles in economic corridor and using digital technologies. I think taking into account these areas, we will be able to create an effective economic corridor. And let me stop here, and I wish you and wish all of us fruitful discussion and success. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deputy Minister. Thank you for sharing with us your specific ideas and suggestions regarding the next stage, action needed for development of this Shymkent, Tashkent, and Kujiang Economic Corridor. And also, I'd like to thank you in particular for your highlighting the role of ECD in improving or strengthening the relationship between the countries. Actually, this is also one of the very important value that the RCI can add, can bring to our developing member countries. RCI, in addition to bring all kinds of economic or trade benefits, it can also help increase the mutual trust between countries and improve the relationship, create a stable and peaceful environment for development. I mean, peace dividend from regional cooperation is worth further emphasizing. Thank you. Next, I'd like to invite representative of Turkmenistan, Mr. Atar Chapayev, Chief Economist, International Division, Ministry of Finance and Economy.
Большое спасибо за предоставленное слово. Прежде всего, дорогие коллеги, я хотел бы поблагодарить наших грузинских коллег и Азиатский банк развития за высокий уровень организации конференции по региональному сотрудничеству и интеграции, а также выразить признательность за возможность поделиться своим видением по интеграции посредством развития экономических коридоров. В первую очередь, я хотел бы отметить, что Туркменистан активно выступает за интенсификацию регионального партнерства и за формирование наиболее лучшей модели сотрудничества с учетом национальных приоритетов и задач глобального развития. Хотел бы отметить, что Туркменистан высоко ценит дружественные и партнерские отношения, сложившиеся между государствами, в том числе и в рамках программы ЦАРЕС, которая помогает нам из года в год расширять политические и экономические связи, и что служит хорошей платформой для устойчивого экономического развития. Позвольте мне несколько слов сказать о внешней торговле Туркменистана со странами ЦАРЕС. Так, в 2022 году внешнеторговый оборот Туркменистана со странами ЦАРЕС составил $20 миллиардов, и показал рост 30% по сравнению с 2021 годом. И такая тенденция также наблюдается в текущем году. За первое полугодие 2023 года рост составил 6,7%. При этом доля стран ЦАРЭС в общем объеме внешней торговли в среднем составляет 50%, а экспорт туркменской продукции в стран ЦАРЭС составляет свыше 80%. Мы понимаем, что развитие экономических коридоров требует сбалансированного подхода и развития как регионов внутри, как регионов в целом, так и областей внутри страны. Если говорить в целом о программах развития страны и внутриобластных программах, то одной из важных целей в них является создание индустриального общества. Для достижения данной цели в стране проводится политика коренного преобразования национальной экономики, ее переориентация сырьевой модели на модель индустриально-инновационного развития. Осуществляются проекты с высокотехнологичными, наукоемкими составляющими. Последовательно проводятся мероприятия по переходу к цифровой экономике. Несколько слов хотел бы сказать о транспортной инфраструктуре. Совершенствование современной транспортной и логистической инфраструктуры является одним из ключевых вопросов, по которым принимаются стратегические решения. С целью превращения нашей страны в один из центров транспортного сообщения по линии восток-запад и север-юг в транспортную отрасль вкладываются масштабные инвестиции. Мы имеем развитую сеть автомобильных и железнодорожных маршрутов, а также сеть международных аэропортов. В городе Туркменбаши на берегу Каспийского моря активно эксплуатируется международный морской порт с развитой инфраструктурой и логистикой. Дорогие друзья, мои коллеги уже говорили о транспортных коридорах, и Туркменистан тоже является одним из звеном таких транспортных коридоров. Мы считаем важными транспортными коридорами это Таджикистан, Узбекистан, Туркменистан, Кыргызстан, Узбекистан, Туркменистан, Азербайджан, Грузия, Турция. Также реальные перспективы для формирования сбалансированной транспортной инфраструктуры создают также проекты международных транспортных коридоров Узбекистан, Туркменистан, Иран, Оман, Афганистан, Туркменистан, Азербайджан, Грузия, Турция. Туркменистан также выдвинул ряд инициатив в сфере создания транспортно-транзитных коридоров по трансконтинентальным проектам, в частности, по строительству газопровода Туркменистан, Афганистан, Пакистан, Индия, оптиковолоконной линии связи по тому же маршруту, а также линии электропередач в направлении Туркменистана, Афганистан, Пакистан. Эти коридоры имеют составляющую свою в транспортной сфере, но мы считаем, что здесь есть реальный потенциал в их формировании как переформировании как их в экономические коридоры. И здесь, конечно, роль Азиатского банка развития и партнеров по сотрудничеству имеет очень большое значение, так как создание экономических коридоров предполагает создание, в первую очередь, концепции этой экономических коридоров и также разработку очень детального технического, технико-экономического обоснования. И в этой связи АБР мог бы очень сильно сотрудничество с партнером по развитию провести хорошую работу. Представленный на сегодняшний день рамочная структура развития экономических коридоров является, мы считаем, актуальным, несмотря на то, что, конечно, он имеет определенные вызовы, но отвечает современным вызовам развития общества. Координация усилий и региональное взаимодействие с целью развития сотрудничества в сфере цифровизации, гармонизации технических процедур, унификации различных регламентов, а также стимулирования инновационного климата, развития зеленых технологий будут способствовать динамичному росту экономик стран региона, стабильному росту внешнеторговых отношений и расширению инвестиционных возможностей. Несомненно, мы имеем очень хороший опыт сотрудничества в рамках программы ЦАРЭС. Регион ЦАРЭС занимает стратегическое и геополитическое расположение, обладает богатейшим человеческим, природным и ресурсным потенциалом. Эффективная интеграция в рамках ЦАРЭС может стать мощным импульсом развития новых реалий в качестве пространства, на котором осуществляются крупнейшие транспортные и энергетические проекты, создается современная инфраструктура, расширяется использование экономического потенциала каждого из наших государств. Создание современных, интегрированных, сбалансированных и высокотехнологичных экономических коридоров будет реально содействовать укреплению партнерства, стимулировать инвестиционную активность, эффективно способствовать росту экономических и социальных показателей в национальном и региональном масштабах. Уважаемые участники, в конце своего выступления хочу выразить уверенность, что развитие экономических коридоров станет важным шагом на пути реализации многогранного потенциала наших стран. Большое спасибо за внимание.
Thank you, Turkmenistan. Particularly, thank you for your positive comments on the ADB's experience in ECD, and also thank you for sharing with Turkmenistan's ambition and also the concrete plan to transform the country into a hub for the regional transport and the connectivity. Next, I'd like to call the representative of Uzbekistan, Mr. Abdullah Kasimov, advisor to the Ministry of Investment, Industry and Trade.
Спасибо большое за представленное слово, господин Юбинджан. Уважаемые дамы и господа, мы от имени правительства и Министерства инвестиций, промышленности и торговли Узбекистана приносим признательность правительству Грузии, Азиатскому банку развития за организацию этого форума на столь высоком уровне и прекрасные условия, созданные для активной работы. Предыдущий оратор, представитель Туркменистана, обратил внимание на высокую индикативную роль программы ЦАРЕС, инициированной Азиатским банком развития. Эта платформа оказалась своевременной для развития внутрирегиональной и межрегиональной торговли. Мы получаем ряд исследований от АБР, касающихся, как же все-таки политика ЦАРЕС, платформа ЦАРЕС в части воздушных перевозок, автомобильных, железнодорожных перевозок оказала содействие в критический период глобальной пандемии. Это одно само появление ЦАРЕС и его противостояние глобальной пандемии показывает, насколько она была жизнеспособна и плодотворна. Но мы пока ожидаем такое концептуальное исследование, такое широкоформатное исследование, как все-таки ЦАРЕС смог оказать максимальное влияние, чтобы экономики стран, членов ЦАРЕС, не пали в период пандемии и показывали все-таки устойчивый рост, динамик. Это такая просьба будет. Теперь, что касается презентации руководства по развитию. Да, это очень полезная презентация. Инициатива Азиатского банка развития, которая систематически продвигается в наших странах, показывает, что мы выходим на новый уровень качественного взаимодействия и качественного сотрудничества. И экономический коридор – это многополярная, многоформатная, мультимодальная, будем говорить, платформа для сотрудничества в более чем 20, может быть, 30 сферах. Да. Это все понятно. И очень понятно, что озабоченность господина нашего Сривастава о том, что терминологический подход нужен. Тут нам надо всем странам остановиться на конкретной терминологии, именно экономического коридора, и она должна быть международно признана. От термина очень многие зависит. Я в этом согласен с господином Сривастава. От имени нашего министерства, которое уполномочено продвигать экономические коридоры путем привлечения инвестиций внутренних и внешних, и высоких технологий и так далее, я бы попросил бы оказать содействие в следующих 3 сферах. Первый. Это нам нужна для развития экономических коридоров новых, нам нужна более детальная, значит, информация, содействие в легитимизации, то есть правовому обеспечению международного права развития экономических коридоров. Это я имею в виду и сертификацию, стандартизацию, технические условия, вся разрешительная система в рамках экономических коридоров между странами-участницами одного или двух экономических коридоров. Второе. Каковы же все-таки механизмы управления, создания, управления, входа, выхода из этой программы экономических коридоров? Значит, его роль государственных финансовых органов, административных органов, локальных или глобальных, а также роль финансовых механизмов, страхования, значит, охрана окружающей среды, подготовка кадров и так далее. И как же все-таки международные финансовые институты могут оказать точечное воздействие нам в активном продвижении этих коридоров, показывая падение, вот неудачные проекты, абсолютно неудачные проекты, средние проекты и наиболее успешные проекты, с тем, чтобы нас уберечь от таких падений. Ну и, конечно, мы бы просили стран-участниц и Азиатского банка развития оказать максимальное воздействие на расширение информативности общества. Общество растет, оно должно узнавать, какие выгоды от экономических коридоров и какие упущения какие ущерб может понести из-за развития этих коридоров. В этих вопросах мы хотели бы ожидать детальную содействие и помощь Азиатского банка развития. Еще раз большое спасибо за такую важную встречу. Спасибо.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Uzbekistan. Particularly, I like your point of the highlighting the importance of standardization or harmonization of policies, laws, and the processes or standards across countries. Actually, this is the so-called soft infrastructure for economic development, which is also highlighted by Pradeep in his presentation. Thank you very much. Now I'm aware of the time. We are already a little bit behind the schedule. So let's now move to the countries from SASEC program, South Asia Sub-Regional Economic Cooperation. I'd like to remind the delegates again to make your comments short. Hopefully we can, each statement should be within 3 minutes. First, could you secretary check whether the Bangladesh delegate is on? Okay, it's not online. Okay, so I'd like to call the representative of Bhutan, Ms. Kaki Wanmo, Senior Planning Officer, Development Coordination and Debt Management Division. Yeah.
Distinguished delegates, esteemed ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Royal Government of Bhutan, I extend our heartfelt gratitude to the ADB for the organization of this significant conference, which has brought together various stakeholders. I also want to express my appreciation to the moderator and Mr. Pradeep for this concise presentation. The guidance note presented holds great value, especially for Bhutan, given its unique geographical location. While the concept of ECD has been in existence for some time, its implementation is relatively new to our context. One of the notable projects related or quite similar to the ECD concept was the Bhutan, Bangladesh, India, Nepal Motor Vehicle Agreement, BBIN Motor Vehicle Agreement, which aimed to improve road connectivity and trade relations between these countries. However, the implementation of this agreement faced delays and challenges. As a landlocked country, Access to external markets, particularly regional ones, is essential for trade promotion and economic growth. The strength of our trade heavily relies on robust transportation connectivity to neighboring countries. Currently, approximately 75% of our export costs are associated with transportation, putting us at a competitive disadvantage in the global market. Therefore, any positive developments in our neighboring countries will inevitably impact Bhutan, as our trade is either with or through these neighboring countries. The interconnection between the SASAC corridors and ECD is clearly reflected in the action plan for SASAC initiatives and the SASAC operational plan. We are also aware of the numerous studies conducted within SASAC countries related to ECD. The strategic objectives of promoting economic corridor development in SASAC countries revolve around fostering synergy between individual corridor development to maximize the developmental benefits of investments, primarily through enhanced border connectivity. Achieving this goal will necessitate Achieving this goal will necessitate coordinated planning and programming interventions that link investments in physical infrastructure, spanning transportation, urban development, and industrial growth among SASAC nations. In Bhutan, particularly, the Thimphu Phinsaling Jaigong corridor is under development with the construction of a mini dry port near the eastern bank of the Amochu River. Similarly, a mega dry port is taking shape in Pasaka, Phinsaling, which is adjacent to the LA in West Bengal, India, while the construction of mini dry ports at Ngonglam and Gelefu, bordering Assam, is also progressing. We have numerous mini dry ports and industrial parks under construction, all of which will facilitate trade and all of which were possible mainly through our development partners like the ADB. Bhutan currently lacks railway connectivity, both domestically and with neighboring countries. The nearest Indian railway link to Bhutan's border town is Hasimara Railway, which is situated 17 kilometers away. This regional conference comes at an opportune moment for Bhutan. We are in the process of formulating our 13th five-year plan, and we are also in the process of refining our planning approach, which signifies a transition plan with a focus on major policy and institutional transformations. Key priorities include economic development through improved connectivity, enhanced private sector development, job creation, and trade facilitation. Our planning approach assesses the competitive edge and comparative advantage of each of our local governments, like counties, districts, as called in the other parts of the world, considering corridor development both within and beyond our geographic borders. This ECD framework will be a valuable resource in this regard. While we highly value the provided guidance note, its contextualization and refinement to suit Bhutan's specific circumstances are essential. We propose the following points or considerations. Firstly, a comprehensive assessment of Bhutan's economic, social, and geographic conditions should be conducted to determine the suitability of various ECD components. Secondly, sustainability considerations should be integrated into the framework with a focus on prioritizing environmental and cultural factors in project planning and implementation. Local communities must be engaged in the planning and decision-making process to address their needs and concerns. Bhutan's unique strengths and competitive advantages should be identified and leveraged in the design of ECD projects. Given Bhutan's resource constraints, a phased approach to ECD implementation, concentrating on priority areas aligned with the country's development goals, should be considered. Collaboration with regional and international partners should be sought to access additional resources, expertise, and best practices. Finally, but not the least, acknowledging that Bhutan's development trajectory may differ from other countries, the framework should be adaptable to Bhutan's specific circumstances. As we eagerly anticipate the adoption of the ECD framework, I would like to conclude with a few questions. Firstly, how can we ensure that environmental and social considerations are integrated into the ECD initiatives to ensure sustainability and inclusivity? Secondly, how does the ADB collaborate with other development partners, international organizations, and financial institutions to harness resources and expertise for ECD projects or other similar approaches to development? I extend my gratitude to all the participants for your kind attention, and I look forward to a productive conference. Thank you.
Thank you, Bhutan, for your very thoughtful comments, especially your suggestions on the possible refinements of the framework when it is applied in your country situation, and also appreciate your special questions. I think the team and including our consultant Pradeep will have taken all those questions and points very well. Next, I'd like to invite a representative of India, Mr. Sumita Dora, Special Secretary, Department of Promotion of Industry and International Trade, Ministry of Commerce and Industry. India, please.
Thank you, and thank you for a very engaging presentation, discussion on the guidance note on a new framework for the economic corridor development. We in India have been implementing the National Industrial Corridors Program, and the ADB has been also partnering in some of these initiatives. While the Industrial Corridor Program has had its important points, it has its advantages. For instance, in Dholera, which is an economic node on an industrial corridor, which was mentioned today, the Delhi-Mumbai Industrial Corridor. In Dholera is an economic township where access-controlled expressways, connectivity to international airport, metro, solar park, port connectivity, etc. have been developed, including the concept of ICD, which is coming up there. At the same time, the socio-economic benefits of such an approach, we do understand, are limited. I would like to give a little bit of background before I go to the next part of my presentation, and that is how by 2047, India has the vision, our Honorable Prime Minister, Shri Modi, has the vision that India will be a developed nation by 2047. And as we are aware, India is the fastest growing among the major economies in the world. And we have a big capex push for infrastructure in the country. And in this year alone, the union budget has given an outlay of more than $120 billion for infrastructure development, which is a 37% increase over the previous year. To make sure that this infrastructure investment goes the right way and brings value addition without duplicating infrastructure, our Honorable Prime Minister has launched the PM Gati Shakti approach, that is the Prime Minister's Gati Shakti approach, the National Master Plan. Gati means speed and Shakti means power. So the Prime Minister's Gati Shakti approach towards developing a national master plan for infrastructure development in the country. What is the Gati Shakti concept? The concept is about integrating infrastructure development across the various ministries and departments of government of India and the state governments, bring about a collaborative whole of government approach, enable comprehensive planning and synchronization in planning so that there is no duplication in infrastructure and avoiding overlaps, prioritizing the works of infrastructure, bringing about seamless movement of people and goods in the country. We have made this approach operational, and we've made it operational in two ways. One is an institutional mechanism which has been put in place at both the Government of India level, in all the ministries, and also in all the 36 states and union territories of the country. Secondly, we have a GIS data-based national master plan, which is the main tool, the planning mechanism for our approach. We have put together more than 1,400 GIS data layers which pertain to infrastructure in the country, and they cover the various infrastructure assets, the ports, the roads, the airports, the renewable energy assets, the power lines, the telecom assets, at the same time, the natural resources of the country, the forests, the wildlife sanctuaries, the industrial parks, the skilling centers, the other logistics facilities, land revenue maps, and it enables visualization of all these infrastructure works and other assets when we are planning any big infrastructure project in the country. And that is how we are planning the next gen infrastructure in the country to bring about ease of doing business and the ease of logistics. The adoption of this geospatial technology is developed by BIZAG. It is an indigenous technology developed by our partner, BIZAG, which is a national geospatial planning development institution in the country. And since we've operationalized the approach through the institutional mechanism and the use of the GIS-based platform, which is the Prime Minister's Gati Shakti National Master Plan, we have also made progress in the last 1.5 years. All our 39 departments, ministries of Government of India, 36 states and UTs have onboarded. And in series of meetings at the Government of India level, 100 projects have been seen for multimodal connectivity and to ensure that there's connectivity to the economic centers, to the industrial parks, and also to social infrastructure. 100 projects have been assessed over 54 meetings of the Network Planning Group in Government of India. The Ministry of Road, Transport Highways in Government of India has planned more than 7,500 kilometers of national highways. And also the Ministry of Rails has planned more than 13,000 kilometers, thereby giving connectivity to both economic and also bringing in place a plan which connects the state highways to the social infrastructure such as the schools, hospitals. That is the concept on which we are going now. A lot of advantages and benefits have come out of this approach, which I will get an occasion to present tomorrow. And now, as you would have appreciated, the infrastructure works which are being planned, they are being planned with the objective of both economic and social connectivity, leading to an area development approach. And this area development approach is what we are looking at, the spatial planning approach in the country, whereby the entire region is saturated with infrastructure to bring about development and progress. When we connect to the approach which has been presented today, as we are taking the Gati Shakti approach down to the district level in the country, it would be good to have involvement from the ADB for developing certain models of this convergence approach, whereby spatial planning the tool can be used to bring out some outstanding models of area development. At the same time, when we look at the regional connectivity today, through the Gati Shakti approach, the maritime routes are connecting to each other from Kolkata port to Sitwe port in Myanmar, for example, to Chittagong in Bangladesh. And these are the ports which are serving the hinterland, which also includes Nepal, it includes Bhutan and Bangladesh, and the connectivity to Sri Lanka and so on. And SASIC could perhaps look at the Prime Minister's Gati Shakti approach to GIS-based spatial planning as part of the economic development program. Thank you.
Thank you very much, India, particularly for sharing with us information about India's 2047 vision and also the national master plan and approach you are going to use. And also, I see that there's a clear linkage of Indian government's approach and the ADB, what ADB is approaching the ECD approach. Yeah, thank you again. Next, I'd like to call Representative Nepal, Mr. Narayan Dhaka, Undersecretary, International Economic Cooperation Division, Ministry of Finance.
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Narayan, and I'm from Nepal, representing Ministry of Finance. First, I'd like to congratulate ADB for the preparing such a comprehensive and well-referenced ECD guidance note, highlighting its complexity, benefits, rational, and noble intention for transformation from so-called butterfly model to the spatial model. Let me start with Nepal's position in regard to regional cooperation. Nepal has been keeping regional cooperation and infrastructure development and inclusive growth at the central stage of its development discourse for a long time. Though Nepal doesn't have a clearly defined ECD projects in place as yet, Nepal's development approach is very much influenced by economic corridor development principles as reflected in the guidance note. Nepal's progress have been shaped around ECD principles over the past half century. So the recent development approach that Nepal is adopting revolves around our country-level green, resilient, and inclusive development, GREED, idea of ECD found to be reflected into the GREED approach that most of us are adopting recently. So ECD, as we understand, is more than a development approach. It's a pathway to empowerment, connectivity, and inclusivity, and harmony with the cultural heritage and nature. Therefore, ECD principles greatly influence Nepal's vision of inclusive growth and innovation in the region. Talking about SASIC vision, this also resonates well with Nepal's long-term development plan and its strategy. Nepal's ongoing collaboration with the SASIC program is an example of our commitment to regional integration. Through SASIC, we have seen significant advancements in cross-border connectivity and economic integration through targeted investments in infrastructure, the hardware, together with policy alignment and capacity development, the software. On economic corridor development, it is scattered in different sectors in Nepal. It has catalyzed transformative change across various sectors. The construction of vital transport corridors, such as East-West highway corridor, spanning throughout the length of Nepal, about 800 kilometers, has enhanced connectivity between remote regions and major urban centers, boosting trade and connectivity, accessibility. Nepal has also engaged in significant cross-border energy transmission projects, such as the Nepal-India Electricity Transmission and Trade Project, fostering energy security and potential energy trade. Furthermore, ECD has been instrumental in improving customs procedures and reducing non-tax barriers, as seen in the implementation of the Integrated Checkpost, ICP, at key border crossings, custom points, and application of electronic cargo tracking system, ECTS, of transshipment, streamlining trade with the neighboring countries, India. There is an ample opportunity to launch ECD in Nepal as the SASIC trade facilitation strategic framework and the economic corridor as one of the pillars under the SASIC operation plan have been released. SASIC Corridor 1 connecting Kathmandu Valley to Kolkata, Visakhapatnam by Birganj, and SASIC Corridor 3 connecting SASIC countries and Southeast and East Asia have much importance for Nepal as a landlocked country to develop the ECD projects. So I reiterate that Nepal is excited to get benefit from the ECD approach. It will reflect our national development vision and priorities to our more cohesive and strategic regional development. It also aligns with our broader goals of sustainable development, social inclusion, and environmental stewardship. The spatial model resonates with our belief in linking cities, regions, and communities in a way that transcends physical connections. We understand it's about creating networks of opportunity, collaboration, and innovation. Having said this, let me also mention that we believe in more investment into a hardware that ultimately trickles down to the software development. Reaching out to software through hardware is a guiding principle of our development approach that shapes our strategy. At the same time, we firmly believe that the success of any development initiative lies in the harmonious integration of soft inputs such as policy, technical assistance, governance with the tangible outcomes. It's about creating a synergy between the vision and execution and between the strategy and the implementation. By connecting remote regions and bridging urban-rural divides, we want to focus on empowerment, equity, and inclusion. This is not just a policy choice, but also a moral imperative as well. So I appreciate that the document, the guidance note pronounced the importance of multi-sector infrastructure, including transportation, tourism, energy, renewable energy, trade, ICT, agriculture, etc. But I think ICT could have been taken as a critical sector of, S-type corridor in the wake of massive use of artificial intelligence in the economic activities in the Sunday, and elaborated in more detail how it would help enhance domestic connectivity, improve equity through the greater economic networking, particularly in the difficult geographical terrain like Nepal. Similarly, you may also consider headquarters shifting, I don't know how feasible is it, from the economically developed area to the emerging area, in addition to the developing new corridor nodes. Agro-tourism through developing pocket area for particular products. Agro-products may also be one issue. So how to engage private sector in the development is a crucial, as I mentioned during my early intervention, which is this guidance note also touch upon slightly. So what strategy would be feasible to motivate private sector? How domestic and international public sector can leverage private sector investment into the development? So strategic guidance to address these concerns could have also been included in the note. There are, of course, some threats. Strategic guidance may address potential threats like geopolitics and the interest alignment and the striking balance between harmonization, need of harmonization, and need of contextualizations, customization. So finally, Nepal aligns itself with a conceptual framework for the shift to a more ambitious and complex spatial approach, which reflects dedication to regional integration and social inclusivity and environmental management. I wish to express our sincere thanks to the ADB for their unwavering support and collaboration in shaping this new ECD framework, which is expected to foster regional cooperation, pave the way for sustainable growth and shared prosperity in future. Thank you.
Thank you, Napa, for sharing your insights and particularly your suggestions on the high priority areas for economic corridor development. Next, I'd like to call representative from Sri Lanka, Mr. Udaya Malawarachi, Director, Department of National Planning, Ministry of Finance.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's a great pleasure for me to be with you all at this ECD conference today. Not only in person within this room, but join with the virtual also. So this report introduces a new framework for economic corridor development within ADB's RCI operations. The new framework envisions ECD as a spatial concept involving diverse hard and soft infrastructure provisions, economic incentives, market development, and institutional strengthening. Sri Lanka has been planned an ECD called Colombo Economic Corridor Development, which is supported by the ADB. ADB did a comprehensive study in 2018. It was aimed to private sector investments, minimizing regional imbalances, job creation and productivity improvements, to connect global supply chain and value chains, improve regional connectivity, while improving cross-country trading. So, but we can experience progress with many challenges we had to face, including the COVID and as well as the economic crisis now. Export-oriented private sector investments are very much important for Sri Lankan economy. Well-planned ECD is one of the best options to attract more and more private sector investments. Even though the Sri Lanka is facing economic crisis, thereby very limited fiscal space for government investments, it is well understood and proved the requirement of continuing the economic corridor development project. So therefore, Sri Lanka is welcome the ECD guideline note, as this will provide us a pathway to economic development of the country. So improvements we are suggesting. Number one is that policy and legal framework. It is very much important for us to have a suitable policy framework, thereby a strong legal framework and supporting institutional framework to avoid potential failures and ensure sustainability. We need to give the recognition thereby build investor confidence, to embed good governance, to avoid improper designs due to poor coordination, and non-availability of inadequate skilled workforces. Further, a transitional plan to move from the existing legal setup to a new setup need to be formulated in consultation with the stakeholders. Land acquisition and smart land use planning is very much important because it is very critical to success of the ECD. It's a challenging task and time-consuming task. So the number 3 is that further efficiency improvement of international gateways like ports and airports. Island nations like Sri Lanka do not have lengthy land transport routes which are extending through the land borders of neighboring countries. However, ports and airports serve as borders for such countries with same basic functions. Increased efficiency of ports and airports will generate more benefits to the country, which provides smooth transit facilities, securing competitiveness of goods in the global market. Now we are in the middle of designing and studying and designing a single window system and the port community system of our country. It's important to have the comprehensive communication plan. Just establishing transport corridor will not be converting it into ECD, as such conversion needs a lot of energy. So therefore, long-term commitment is important. Comprehensive communication plan will provide a platform to build better understanding of the ECD concept among the investors, politicians, professionals, administrators, and the general public, thereby obtain their commitment. So insights of the potential benefits: industrialization and job creations, regional development and balanced growth, innovation and knowledge sharing, trade and investments, infrastructure investments, and tourism and cultural exchange. Those are high in the agenda. Main challenges are financial constraints, land acquisition and resettlements, regulatory and administrative hurdles, environment concerns, coordination and stakeholder engagements, infrastructure maintenance, commitment of the country and the government, policy and legal framework. Those are the main challenging areas for this exercise, and the comprehensive communication plan for the get a better understanding. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you, Sri Lanka. Since given the time, I think we should complete the morning session. There are another group of countries from the Southeast Asia. We'd suggest that in the afternoon session is about GMS BPAGA experience. So I'd suggest that you can include your comments during your intervention in the second session in the afternoon. Yeah. Sorry for not being able to give everybody to speak.